It's 100% entertainment, 100% electricity, 100%.
Pipebomb Radio with your host, Felix Olmedo.
To be the man, you gotta beat the man.
And Austin James.
That's the bottom line. From stone to stone.
Welcome everybody. It's Tuesday night again. You know what time? You know what that means. It is Pipebomb Radio time. It is Legends Month continued. You're joined, of course, by myself and Austin and Nate, your hosts for the evening. And what a guest we have tonight. But as it's stated on the Pipebomb Radio Facebook page, we would unveil who our next week's guest was going to be to close out the month. Am I correct, Austin?
Yes, you are. Not next month. You know, we're just starting off good, and then I messed it up. Well, next week on Pipebomb Radio, we're actually having on a legend himself. I mean, this is a big thing. WWE Hall of Famer, the Boogie Woogie Man, Mercy Daddy, Jimmy Valiant, WWE Hall of Famer.
Now you got to try to give that with some oomph. Woo, Mercy Daddy.
So you have
I guess
you have the book. Yeah, so I guess you have the Bible or something that knows how to do that. So, I mean, I think
what about you, Nate? Want to give it a try?
Have mercy, Daddy. Woo!
Now that's
there
funk.
You go.
you and Naomi would be a good pair together. Jimmy Vaughn and I want to hear that again next week on Pipebomb Radio.
Hey, well, there you go. That was pretty good. We all kind of gave it our best shot, and I think we did all right.
I think I did the best, but that's just me.
Well, you would say that, but, you know.
No, I wouldn't.
But that does not take away from the fact that who we have on tonight. He is the Russian Bear. He is a future WWE Hall of Famer, hopefully maybe real soon. He is a guest that was with us earlier this year, and with recent news of his new documentary becoming a reality, what a better way to bring him back and talk about the success of this and what's to look forward to in it. And who am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about Ivan Koloff.
And we actually had Ivan on.
Radio.
Yeah, we actually had Ivan on this past March, I believe, on the show. Phenomenal show, as always. I mean, what would you expect of a guy like Ivan Koloff? Been there, done that, been around the world and back. I mean, he's quite the man.
And then some. You know, he's still around and kicking. He's still got his website going. He's actually I'm probably going to slaughter this. I'm saying this wrong, but he actually is he resides over weddings. He actually, what do you call those? I think the one, I don't want to say a pastor, but he's the one that does the wedding. He does weddings for couples and so forth out of South Carolina. I believe that's where he's from. But I'm going to get clarification on that because I don't know exactly if I said that right. That's probably the best way to say that, ordained minister.
Yeah.
Because I know one of our other guests was also one as well. If you didn't know, Kenny Dykstra from the Spirit Squad is also an ordained minister. Who would have guessed?
Nate,
I sure wouldn't have.
Spirit Squad. Remember that guy Ken Doan was in the Spirit Squad. He was Kenny, ordained minister, writes books for children now. Who would have guessed?
Yeah.
So now he's in the Holy Spirit Squad.
There you go.
That was good.
Yes, sir. You know what? Talk amongst yourselves. I will be right back.
Well, you know, Nate, Night of Champions was actually just a few nights ago, this past Sunday. What do you think about Brock Lesnar versus John Cena? Did you expect everything to happen? I sure as hell didn't. Seth Rollins cashing an opportunity and then failing ultimately.
I did not expect it at all. It was another good match between those two, and I think we're going to get a third one, and it's funny that you mentioned Hell, because I think we're going to get a third one in Hell in the Cell.
Yep, it's bound to happen. I mean, John Cena versus Brock Lesnar. We've seen the Extreme Rules match. We've seen him at SummerSlam. We've seen him at Night of Champions. We need to see him inside of a steel cage. Well, Hell in a Cell, I guess there's a difference in how they make them. But one thing I want to see them take it to the top. You know, of the cell. I want to see them really get down and dirty. But besides them, something that's been brewing, especially over the past weeks, Dean Ambrose returns to Night of Champions and takes out Seth Rollins. And, I mean, this rivalry is getting real good. I mean, it probably was really on fire where they left it after Dean's head was put through some the cement steps or blocks, and I cannot wait to see where this is escalating to.
Yeah, rumors.
Well, I apologize for stepping away for a moment, guys. I am back. Our guest should be calling in here in just a moment. He just confirmed he will be calling in just a few minutes.
All right.
Now, what you were saying about Dean Ambrose, Nate?
I was going to say rumors of his death were greatly exaggerated. Ambrose, with the injury to Roman Reigns, I think Ambrose may be the hottest baby face on the roster right now, other than John Cena. So I'm really interested to see what him and Rollins can do, especially in a Hell in a Cell. I think that'll be a great match between those two guys.
Absolutely.
And without any further ado, guys, I do want to let you know we can continue this afterwards, but our guest is definitely calling in right now. He is the one, the only, the legendary Ivan Koloff. He is a man who defeated WWE Hall of Famer Bruno Sammartino after his long, lengthy reign as WWWF champion. He is Ivan Koloff. Welcome back to the show, sir. I can't even talk anymore. Whew. You made me nervous there, sir. Welcome back.
How are you? I appreciate you.
Not a problem.
Today.
We welcome you back, and we're excited for your new documentary to come out. And just wanted to find out how you've been doing these last few months since we last spoke with you.
Doing all right, just enjoying life, the grandbabies, and just still making some trips around, got my little ministry, and officiating some weddings and speaking at churches. Everything's real good. Enjoying it. Going around a little slower than usual, but I woke up this morning on the right side of the grass, you might say.
Well, I didn't. I wish we had something in common. I didn't wake up on the right side of bed this morning. So, I guess the main question to ask is how excited are you to start producing this new documentary covering your entire, career in professional wrestling? Everything's a done deal. It's ready to go.
Yes, it's been exciting just having this documentary put together. I really appreciate Michael Elliott and all the fans and the people that's involved in the project to put it together. I didn't realize the documentary consisted of so much different things, but I guess when you dove into somebody's life that has been in a lot of different places and actually covers a lot of different things that happen in that life, it makes it quite a project for sure, but it's really my honor to have this done, and I enjoy it very much. I guess one thing that top this all out now is for me to go see some of my old friends and be inducted in the Hall of Fame. WWE, that is.
Very cool.
Now, Ivan, I'm looking forward to this project, and, part of it that makes it so cool is that you had a response from the fans. You had a response from people that looked at your career, admired your work, and they wanted to be a part of this thing. How did it feel for you to know that there's so many people out there that still really are into you and want to hear about the Russian Bear's life?
Yes, I think it's because I ended up meeting them at one time or other, whether it was in the ring or as an adversary or as a partner, and sometimes just on trips together, and you just get to meet people and get to know them a little bit. And fortunately, they, I guess, didn't judge me real bad when they met me, and they got some friendly thoughts about me. And so they end up, I guess, wanting to know now what you're doing and how you're doing and all this good stuff. And that's really nice to know that there's so many fans. I didn't realize that until I started doing a lot of autographs this past 20 years. It's been like out of the wrestling field so much, but still active in the sense that I'm out there with the fans and doing autographs for charity. You end up meeting a lot of fans and end up talking about wrestling, and they say, man, I can remember this time and this time. It really brings your mind back to the great times that I had in the business and different people that I met. And it's just nice to know that a lot of the people out there thought so fondly of me, even though that was a dirty old rotten communist villain.
And as far as your website goes, we were just talking before you came on that you were mentioning too residing over weddings and so forth. How often are you doing that now? Are you still you doing that once in a great while, or do you still do that quite often and go out and interact with families that are wanting you to reside over their wedding? How is that going?
Real good, yes. I've probably get 2 or 3, sometimes 4 or 5 a month, and I really enjoy that because just I've been Koloff's way of getting even with these American people for all the time they booed him now. Now I get to marry them and they can boo each other. It's just really a thrill just to be able to go out there and after being married for so many years and myself and experienced a lot of different things and the learning cycle of growing up and being a partner in a marriage, you just realize that man, did this wrong and I sure wish I would have done this, and so you can pass on a little bit of that wisdom maybe and help them to maybe keep things on the even keel whenever they're out there living together. And to me, that's, my 2 cents worth type thing, like the commercial goes, but it's something that you've realized yourself, and you say, well, I'd like to be able to help these people, and I give them the advice, whether they take it or not, or appreciate it or not, and they just figure that they're going to find out one time that Ivan was right about it, because I feel that so many people, in talking to them since these many years of being out here, I just feel that it's going to come around to they're going to have that same challenge that I had and learn from it. And the sooner they do that and grow from it, the more they're going to get along with their mate and all this good stuff. So I really enjoy doing this and going out and officiating weddings. And speaking at the churches, that just works hand in hand with doing the autographs for charity, because I end up getting rewarded back because I'm doing something that helps a good cause. And on the same side, I end up meeting people that not only Christian, but people that are not Christian. And I get to talk to them about some of the things that I did and found out that I should have done this way. And also maybe some openings for come into some churches because I meet some pastors. Also, a lot of people end up that I end up officiating the weddings. I meet that way by doing autographs, and they come in and get talking, and they say, "Oh man, you're ordained to marry people? That'd be great, right? We could have the Russian bear marry us." So I really enjoy it.
So, do the majority of people actually that you reside in the weddings over, are they wrestling fans?
I'm sorry, what was that question? I'm sorry.
The majority of the people that you reside the weddings over, are they wrestling fans?
Yeah, most of them are. It seems like doing autographs, of course, I draw the fans towards me because they know what I'm doing and they recognize me. So that opens the door to talking wrestling. And also, that happens to get married. A lot of them, I think, honor the fans because they think it would be neat. I've even married people in the ring, so that was really a unique situation in parks, on beaches, even had to wade out in the water and for people that just have a certain whim to do it. And I guess not all officiants would do that, and I guess they get a kick out of the fact that I'll do some different stuff, but yet I can still handle a wedding that's prim and proper, type thing, and more elegant. And I really enjoy just meeting these people and being part of it. But most of them, I think, the actual wrestling is wrestling fans, and that's why they like me to officiate.
Now, when it comes to your documentary, were there stories during the making of this or memories that you'd even forgotten, and in the process of making this project, you kind of remembered some great times or some great opponents or some great friendships that you might have forgotten about?
Yes, there has been. Matter of fact, I had written a book, co-authored a book with Scott Teal on my life autobiography here about 6 years ago, and that's out there. It's called Is That Wrestling Fake? The Bare Facts by Ivan Koloff. And I end up in that book, I guess, giving a lot of stories, so that freshened my mind up to some of them. But yeah, since I've been doing this documentary, it's I guess reached out there a little further to come up with some things that maybe I didn't even mention in the book and talk about, and other things that happened since the book, that I would have added to the book if I had experienced them already, in those few years since the book was written. But, yeah, I think it does bring to mind a lot of the things because I didn't stop to think a lot of the times. Because to explain to the fans out there listening and doesn't know my story, it's quite an ordeal you go through unless you experience yourself, whenever you go into a business that you love so much, professional wrestling, ever since you were a kid, 8 years old, and you ended up having the dream come true and becoming champion and all, but realizing that, as the story goes on, my career ended up going from, really working out hard to getting to that point of being able to be noticed and start wrestling to injuries, and then after, you're wrestling every day and sometimes twice a day, it's like you end up getting involved in taking pills for aches and pains, and pretty soon it's you're addicted to pills and you're addicted to alcohol, and just, I mean, not to be negative about it, but that happens to a lot of people in showbiz. But it's prominent, I guess, in athletes and different sports, and it ends up, unfortunately, this is a lot of guys that got through it and never got hung up on stuff like drugs and alcohol. But in my case, it sure took me down that path of creating some crazy, wild stories that, nobody could really imagine, Maybe it just would encourage you to stay off of that alcohol and drugs once you hear it, because whenever I say that I'm lucky to be here, I'm graced to be here, blessed to be here, because I can think of at least a dozen times where I could have been dead. That's just like impact and accidents and such things like that. Injuries in rings landing on my head. But even beyond that, is the idea of putting myself in bad position by being so, out of control that could have caused a death, not my own, somebody else's. And I'm not proud of that fact, but that's part of my story because it's the truth. I can remember waking up many times, not knowing where I was at. I can remember fighting. I don't remember the actual fight because I was so inebriated that all the times that it happened. And I'm not even a fighter. I mean, I guess I was so I'm not maybe very determined to even end up lasting in a fight at all. But when you start doing that in bars all over the world and in airliners, and I mean, it's a wonder I wasn't arrested for terrorism or because crazy stuff. But and just here around home wrestling, the idea of you get to the point that you're so messed up, you're carrying a gun and you're carrying a machete, and you're in that kind of shape. I can remember faintly, or some of it, where guys would come up to me and I guess went to rob me or something, and realizing I was in somewhat of a danger because there's several guys and only myself in a secluded place. When you meet them with a machete in one hand and a gun in the other, it's discouraging for them to continue bothering you after that. But just to think that I ended up being involved in all that crazy stuff doesn't say much for whenever I say that I grew up being a very humble, quiet kid, that, like a mama's boy, hung around my mama, raising a family of 10 kids, 7 boys and 3 girls, and to be real shy and, to myself, and then end up being like this whenever I end up getting into wrestling and get out there, and I guess have to put up with the injuries of wrestling and the celebrations of wrestling, or whatever you may call it, and get involved in all this stuff. It's a wonder I'm alive, really. And I'm very happy to be alive because I have a big change in my life in the last 20 years, and I'm glad of it. It's a chance for me now to really live and appreciate things, and be thankful for what happened, and coming out of it on positive side, you know. So, yeah, and to have such luck as to be the right place, right time, or whatever it may be, destiny or what, you know, for a guy like myself, very humbly brought up, and to end up not only becoming a wrestler, but becoming somewhat noticed and then becoming into the biggest organization there was at the time, the WWWF, and wrestling against my own hero, Bruno Sammartino, to win the title, because he was several years older than I was, and I watched him. He was, just what I wanted to be, big, strong, you know, but yet seemed to be such a nice guy, you know, and I guess that was my idol, and can you imagine getting in the ring and then winning the belt against your own hero, and then how bad I must have felt for about 2 seconds, you know, or maybe 5 seconds. But no kidding aside, it was really quite a life up till now, and I'm looking forward to the best part being ahead of me.
You know, Mr. Koloff, I did want to ask. I'm actually looking at your website right now, and I see that you wrote a few years ago. You wrote a book, Is That Wrestling Fake? And it's you and Scott Teal wrote a book about your career in wrestling. And you touched on a lot of. I think you may have even talked a little bit about what might be in the book already. What was some of your inspirations about wanting to write the book? I mean, do you feel that you could maybe do a part 2, maybe a continuation from that book, and talk about what you're up to these last several years, and your thoughts, sir?
Well, there would be some things to talk about, some great experiences, I might say, not so much of that crazy stuff that happened in the first book, but some neat experiences that happened to me since then. Yeah, that could be a consideration maybe as I get older, or just down the road here, maybe come up with all these different things that happen. But yeah, you know, when Scott Teal first approached me about it, we were talking, and he said, "You ever think about writing a book, Ivan? You know, I'm looking at doing some books for some of the wrestlers, and I'd like to do a book on them." And I said, "Well, it was right after I had, you know, been involved in becoming a Christian and ministry and all of this." I said, "Yeah, there might be something to that, you know, like get the word out and my story out, type thing." So, yeah, I was excited about doing it. I mean, if you had asked me 20 years ago, probably I would have said, "No, I mean, you're too embarrassed, you know, because all the crazy stuff you did." But as you live longer and you experience different things, you realize that a lot of people will through some crazy times in their lives, and if somebody could benefit from knowing not to go that route, you know, it's worth putting down on paper. So he didn't have to encourage me a lot. I did want it to be authentic. I mean, like true to form. I didn't want to hype it up to make it sound like more exciting, like some guys write books. I didn't want to knock a lot of other wrestlers or other people in it, because it would be the Christian thing to do. But it's still also the book was supposed to be about me, so I tried to keep it to stuff that involved myself on the negative side more so than complaining about somebody else. But I did mention a lot of the boys, you know, because they're very instrumental in my career, a lot of them. Matter of fact, a lot of them, I guess if I hadn't met them, I would have never been successful. And I really found that from the time I started to right up until I was always open to learning more and, you know, about the business, and guys were open about sharing it. Most guys, you know, that you really got to know and like. But some guys, of course, they kept it to themselves because they didn't want this young guy coming up and maybe taking his job away from him. So maybe I had to wait to get somebody that really liked me enough to share some stuff with me. But it seemed to be a lot of them, because I'd end up being open to, what do you think? You know, what should I do different? Stuff like that. Most people will give their opinion on it, you know. That was good.
We actually just got a message or a question from a fan on Facebook. Matt Nelson asked, "How did you get the name the Russian Bear?"
You know, that she tagged on to me later on when I got to New York. I think in '69 when I first went up to wrestle Bruno out of Montreal. I had been successful in Montreal for 2 or 3 years. Inside of Koloff, win the Canadian belt, tag team belts, a couple times, I think, each one of them, and then leaving there and going to New York. I'm not sure who gave me that label. It could have been Captain Lou Albano, or maybe even Vince McMahon Jr. I don't know, but all of a sudden people were calling me, the Russian Bear, and as time went on, even more so, got more and more of the Russian Bear. Because I don't recall when I first went up there them calling me the Russian Bear, just more or less I could pull out the Russia Moscow type thing. Later on, I think it was emphasized more, especially after I got with Nikita later on, because of I was a Russian Bear, he was a Russian Nightmare, type thing. And people really related to that, I guess. But even back then, I gave you that tag. I guess you look at Russia as being, the Indian being the bear type thing, because of the strength of the bear and all this stuff and the size of it and all that. They figured that might be a good tag for me. So, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it to be labeled the bear. It's better being, labeled the alligator or something, and not have big teeth or something.
What's funny to me, Mr. Koloff, is how the more things change in wrestling, the more they stay the same. And, you talk about back in the 70s and the 80s, you were the big, scary Russian. And now in 2014, there's a big, scary Russian in the WWE. Currently, are you watching the current product? And if you are, what do you think about Rusev?
Oh, yeah, I think he's great. Yeah, I mean, he's a big, stocky. What you would look at is being a Russian athlete. I think he's good, and he's agile too. That's a big plus also, because I think the way he delivers those kicks to the face and upper body is a pretty strong guy to be able to pick up some of these big men. And so he's an all-around good representative of the Russia. And it's ideal timing with Putin creating some heat over there with the countries and what he's doing on the front. I guess Russia will always be in looked at as in the Cold War, like the Cold War era, and people are always pulling for America against Russia type thing. So it's great. I love it. I love the idea that somebody's still out there doing that, and he's a good representative of the whole gimmick type thing, or the whole Russian thing against America, especially when he goes against those big American guys, man. Yeah, doesn't look like he's got a chance with some of them. They're so big, but real good wrestlers, these guys.
Actually, I do have a question from Michael Elliott. He's actually asking me to ask you about what it was like working with Barry Darsow and how hot the Russians were during the Jim Crockett Promotions era.
Oh yeah, real hot. I mean, I think it was very good for me, at least at that time, because I had wrestled all those years and going into the 80s. I started in '62. When you get up into the 80s and Prussia and them come on board, and Nikita, 83, around that time, 84 now. And Prussia, Barry was more of a, athletic type of guy. Like, he could really do a lot of stuff, like from the arm drags, leap frogs, and all the stuff, but yet he was a big guy. Contrasted Nikita in the sense, put that power type of emphasis in there, where he was really laying them in, like, the clotheslines, or I had the sickles, and we call them the hammer and sickles, right? But he was real good at that, to show the power. But Barry was, to me, ideal partner to have, especially with the timing with the Rock and Roll Express first coming in, and us being instrumental in the idea of TV, them cheating us to win the belt, Of course, I got to say that, that really got the rock and roll over, really. That when he bounced right on TV. But, it took a good partner, to say the least. I got to give myself a little credit just to be able to hang in there because it was the whole hour. When commercials come up and all that, they don't stop the match. I mean, you go right out through the whole hour wrestling, and it took just about the end of the hour before the fall happened when they won the belt. So they made the Rock and Roll Express. And I can remember thinking to myself, hey, this Crusher, he's good, because he was very athletic, very fast. He could come off the top. He could do everything, and he was an ideal partner for me, especially in that situation. And then later on, of course, with Nikita, myself, and him, I had more or less the older, wiser, supposedly wrestler type thing, having the two big young guys against the ideal team of the Road Warriors, and then still the fast, athletic team like the Rock and Roll Express to wrestle against. It was a natural, and it really gave me that second breath as far as my career was concerned. He really added to it. I remember little things I even learned from him, and I realized later on guys were doing it all the time, but especially Ric Flair and that. But I really have noticed it whenever Crusher did it one day in that match. And in fact, he did the thing where they went after him. They broke into a four-way or something. They went after him. He went outside, came back in. The one where you turn on the guy as he's coming back in the ring, and you could get over on him, or you take over on him by turning on him right there at the rope as he's coming back in. Ric Flair did that quite a bit. And at that time, I'd seen that a lot. I wrestled a lot and in a lot of situations, and that was done a little bit different, but that was ideal. He more or less did it to sucker the guy into chasing him, more like laughing at him and making the guy want to say, oh, yeah, I'll get you, and come running after him rather than just looking like he was scared. He did it in a way that showed that he was using psychology behind it to get the guy so upset at him that he'd chase after him. And I picked that up in that match. I said, that was pretty neat, how he did that. I remember that. So, hey, you could learn from guys just starting off, too, and that was one thing that I really liked about Crusher. He was a great athlete, and obviously showed that he was a great wrestler, because he went from there, Demolition, up in WWE, and then after that, the Repo Man. So he was all-around great athlete and wrestler to be able to do all this. So,
and towards the better part of the 1970s, you actually had the opportunity to have many battles with the great Antonio Inoki in New Japan Pro Wrestling. How was that time for you, and was he a formidable opponent for the Russian Bears?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a lot of people didn't realize that about Inoki. But all the Japanese are very aggressive. The athletes, they're not afraid to lay it in, like kick you hard, punch you, chop you, or whatever. And Inoki, not being a real big guy, more on the slim side, but there's been a lot of tough guys, and then with slim guys. Now, Inoki was really good, really great, because the contrast between him and Giant Baba, of course, Baba being just so tall, it was ideal, really, because Inoki could do all the wrestling moves, up and down, and flying head scissors and all that stuff. And I really enjoyed it, because I got to wrestle him way back in '67 when I went over there before the Ivan Koloff situation. I ended up wrestling under a different name and getting over to, and I even met a Japanese fan the other day that remembered back then when I was over there in Japan. So that was quite a treat to find that out. But people didn't really realize it, because I guess it made so much difference whenever a person ends up having hair, and then you shave the hair off and change your beard, your outfit, you put on 20 more pounds or something. That's not the same guy, But yeah, it was great to have wrestled against like the champion between him and Baba. Those times I went over there, I got to wrestle against both of them, and man, it was a thrill too to have wrestled against them, and then go back later on and wrestle them as Ivan Koloff and really had quite a few matches over the years. I think I've had something like 12 tours over there altogether, so that's a lot of the guys over there, but some really pretty tough guys, too. Good shape.
Well, when you talk about a great like Antonio Inoki, a great like a Bruno Sammartino, Pedro Morales, Superstar Billy Graham, was there one thing, Mr. Koloff, that they all had in common in terms of being able to get to that top level? Was there a work ethic? Was there a dedication? What were some of the things that you saw, wrestling against so many of the greats of this sport?
I think all of those things. It seems like if you don't have all of the qualities of, say, being a great wrestler, looking the part, or looking outstanding, like body-wise, like the Superstar Billy Graham type thing, or Bruno, it's the idea that you're also very knowledgeable about the business. That's why I always said it takes a person that not only looks great, can talk real good, and wrestle real good. And usually it takes all those three qualities to be able to end up being a champion, although I've seen it since then where some guys didn't have to be real great at maybe one of those attributes and still become champion, which just will show you that the other two attributes are probably made up the difference, his talking or the way he looked or his skills in the ring. Filled up that part of not being able to maybe be different each match or something, or a little different each match, or somebody would see something different just about every time they've seen him. To me, that really made it for the fans to want to come back and see him. Even though they're used to be wrestling one way, if they end up seeing something new often from the guy, that they would say, man, that guy is versatile or whatever, And I think probably the dedication part, like you're saying, it's very, very important to keep the body up in shape. Because I've found that out over my career too. Not only trying to look half decent, but also conditioning, being cardiovascular was more important than anything. So a lot of the younger guys who were smaller made up the difference because they could move better, faster, more drop kick higher, or flying scissor higher, or a guy that maybe looked real good, wrestled real good, maybe couldn't really be as agile as that was. It would make up the difference. But yeah, I always put that guy in the category when I was looking at a guy as an opponent. If he was a real big guy or about my size, I could do strongman stuff against. Put a little test of strength in there, see if he's stronger or I'm stronger or whatever, just to see who could push me around. Because a lot of times you sort of got their ego, if you put them down or showed them up a little bit, that they would end. That goes both ways. He could do the same thing to me. Of course, when you got in there with a guy like Andre the Giant or a great big guy, and you didn't have too much of a chance against, you never tried to outshine them. For me, it was more just staying alive. Like I told Andre after I met him, I wrestled him a couple of times, tried to stay away from him, got squashed a couple of times in the corners and such. After that, I used a little diplomacy, and I said, after the match, went over to his restroom, and I says, Andre, you drink beer? He says, yes, boss. I said, tonight I buy you a beer, okay? He said, yes, boss. Cost me a small fortune at times, but I ended up trying to get him on my side a little bit, at least. He would never let me win around like that, or not like let me shine or nothing, but he wouldn't kill me in there. And believe me, that man could just lean on you, could hurt you. And so you have to use a little diplomacy a lot of times when you're in there. So I guess it takes all those ingredients to make a champion. Like, and in some places, people just like the character, just like the way that he comes off. Like Bruno was so humble, but yet so strong looking and so determined on his interviews. But yet he got in there and he dropped to his knees and said a prayer before the match, asking God for protection over himself and his opponent. To me, I guess that's why I fell in love with him as a hero. That he was a very feeling type of guy. So I was pulling for him in that match there up in Madison Square Gardens, but that dirty old Russian bear beat him.
Mr. Koloff, I wanted to ask you, I wanted to get you to throw a few plugs in there. I know you have a website, and you stay up with your social media, and a lot of things going on that website. Tell us a little bit about that and throw some plugs in there for your social media.
Yeah, I really enjoy, although I don't have nothing to do with the computer and the network at all. I'm one of these guys that had my 7, 8-year-old granddaughter show them how to use the phone, these phones nowadays or these computers are so, the technology is just super, but my wife looks after that end of it, and I have a son-in-law that he's real good at computers too, and he helps out with the ministry part, but because he and my daughter end up having a gospel group called Highway Revival. You can go to that, highwayrevival.com, and see them, hear them sing on there. They're real good. They go all over. Matter of fact, they're out tonight singing at one of these revivals. Anyway, I ended up, finding out that most of the, stuff like this in my life should be told out there a little bit as far as, and you can't get a better way than the computers and that to get the word out there. So between the book, which is on sale on IvanKoloff.com, or go to crowbarpress.com, that's Scott Keel's, my publisher's address, and get it there also. And it helps my ministry, and I also got pictures on there that you can purchase and for a few dollars, and I autograph, personalize them, whatever you like the instructor to do with it, as far as sending them to you, and that helps the ministry too, keep going, and just going out officiating weddings. We talked about that earlier. I just still do that, love doing that. We've had several things we've been doing, and we're still doing in the past. As a matter of fact, Ted DiBiase came up with the concept, we call it more of a get together with the wrestlers where we take advantage of the fact that we're known a bit in wrestling and our skills in wrestling. We put on wrestling shows just like we would without any church type of situation. Put on some good matches and have guys like myself there, maybe Rock and Roll Express, Sting, Ted DiBiase, Nikita, Lex Luger, a bunch of guys that became Christians and are also ministering. And what we do is let them do the wrestling show, and then after we get up, give a couple of short testimonies, a short sermon, invitation for Christ, and it really touches the people to realize that personally somebody like ourselves can end up running into problems like that, and what the answer was to it. So we're doing that. As a matter of fact, I got 2 this month. Right around here, I work in conjunction with my friend George South out of Charlotte. He's a young guy that was beat up all those years on TV and everything, but he's got a school there, that area, and Salisbury area, and he has his boys trained, and he brings his crew and his ring out, and we do a few shows like that. We got one in Tarboro and one in Williamston here in the North Carolina area, and coming up in Halloween weekend. And I think that's a treat, man. People really love it. They still get to enjoy the aspects of the Halloween type of thing, but it's more, the idea of get God into that and let them realize that that's what's really important, not the goblins and the goofballs and all the monsters and all that stuff. And I think for kids that's a lot better. But yeah, I'm enjoying doing that, and any type of appearances I can get to do, love doing that. Sometimes they have me come out because they're opening up a business and sign autographs and such like that. That's really good. But yeah, the site really helps it a lot because not only can, we got linked up with our daughter and that, but a lot of other people, and we got several thousand friends, and it's really a treat to have so many people now realizing I think really, to be honest with you guys, I'm really, I think, more known now than I was back then. Or maybe just people realizing it more, because it's like no matter where I go now, I mean, I'm not just in my town here where I'm living, but no matter if I go in the other cities or something, just everybody will come up to me. It just seems like they'll stop and look at me and say, "What's your name?" That, you're that wrestler, right, Ivan? That just makes you feel good that they realize it, or even if they weren't big fans, it's the idea that they know that you're somebody that they've watched before.
And it's great about you, Ivan, Mr. Koloff. It's amazing that you have a legacy that's going to last forever. Not many people go out and do what they truly want to do in their lives, and they kind of put fear in the way. And I think you kicked fear to the curb, and you went and do your thing, and you made a legacy for yourself that's going to last for eternity. I mean, you're immortal.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Exactly. Well put. Because a lot of the people just say, "Man, I'm happy that I had a dream and I ended up fulfilling it." But to have another dream now on top of being successful somewhat in the wrestling, and that's still benefiting. God does say that in His Word. He says, "God takes the foolishness of this world to confound the wise." And what can be more foolish than a grown man with bathing suits on, beating each other up, But you end up doing stuff in your life, and maybe it's an asset because it comes back later and can be used to God's glory. And this is what we're hoping that this will do, and it is doing. I believe it is, to a big account, because I really enjoy churches give me a call, come in and share with them, and now I can tell them truly who the greatest world's champion is, and without a doubt, that's my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Why they need Him in their life too. It's my opinion. Mm-hmm. And God's opinion too, which means a lot more.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a dream come true once, and then now I guess it's a bigger dream for me, because I'm more excited about this than I was about the wrestling, if I can say that, because I guess I get that feeling of just contentment, happiness, and the idea of I know I'm doing something now that is right, that is true, that is important, and that will help other people. Whereas what I was doing before was more of a thing for myself, like selfishness, of I want to accomplish this for the money, for the glory, to be able to do this and that, But like I say, God can take the bad, turn it into good. So thank God that He's a patient God and a loving God, because I wouldn't be where I'm at.
And Mr. Koloff, on behalf of myself, Austin, and Nate, we can't thank you enough for coming on and just chatting with us about what's been going on with you and the success of your documentary. That I'm sure once the documentary is finished, I'm sure it will be on sale, probably on your website, if I'm not mistaken. But
sure.
I'm still going to make it happen one way or another. I would definitely want to make it happen between having yourself and Mr. Sammartino on at the same time. That's a goal of mine that I would love to accomplish somehow, some way. I will try, and once I know for sure I can do it, you rest assured that I will definitely be in contact with yourself and Mr. Sammartino so we can make this happen. It needs to happen.
I'd love to do that myself. If Vince will ever induct me in that Hall of Fame, that I'd be around doing on that a lot more too. So that'd be nice. And Will is a gentleman. I'd love to be
always
able to
has
do
been, yes,
that for sure. Maybe we could tell some more of the stories that happen on the road and all of this, to entertain some of the
It's definitely a goal of mine, sir, and I will make sure one way or another, if it's not this year, for sure early part of next year, I want to make it happen. But we will definitely go ahead and let you go for the evening. We're honored that you gave us this time tonight to talk with you a little bit, and we will definitely look to get you back on here very soon.
I appreciate y'all. Thank you very much.
I appreciate
God bless
you, sir.
And all
God bless you,
sir. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. the one and only, the Russian Bear, Ivan Koloff, told some interesting stories. I don't think we even touched on those on the last time we had him on. I don't recall. I don't think we did, but we hit on some good topics tonight.
The last time he came on, we talked more about his startup in wrestling, his family life, and how everything was going there. And part 2 is kind of based on the details, the really interesting details. I mean, the questions that Nate had, Felix, you, and then myself and Antonio Inoki and a couple other things. Really set a lot of bases down for some extremely interesting things that's probably going to be covered in more detail than we're talking about on the documentary set to come out within the coming months.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I really believe, because I know that with the success of Kamala's book, it will be sold on his website after they get distributed, but I see the same thing kind of happening, too, with the documentary. Once they get it distributed out to people who have purchased it and so forth, they will probably start selling it on the website, on his website, and, of course, on Michael Elliott's website. And we thank Michael for sending in his questions. He wasn't able to join us tonight. He's actually working right now, but he did say he will download and listen to the show later. And he thanks you guys. He thanks us all for having him on, having Mr. Koloff on, and talking about the documentary as well. But definitely, and to go back on what you guys were talking about when Mr. Koloff called in. I know you and Nate were talking about Night of Champions. I will let you guys finish that conversation here if you guys wanted to touch on it a little bit, and maybe a little bit of Monday Night Raw, where they played kind of back and forth with the Intercontinental title too.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'm really interested in seeing, what's funny to me is Miz Dow and The Miz. I don't know if you guys watched Main Event on the WWE Network for only $9.99 earlier today. But the thing is, Sandow is actually, when Miz is speaking, and I don't know if I'm just realizing this, but when Miz speaks, Sandow is also speaking behind him. He's not talking. He's basically mouthing what the Miz is saying, and he's on that microphone. I'm like, that is genius. That's so entertaining to watch. And it surprises me how fast the Intercontinental Championship, I don't know if it's for the good or bad. I'm kind of glad that Dolph Ziggler has it back again. He deserves the title to be around his waist. That man should always have a piece of gold somewhere. And, I don't know what you guys think about the whole entire situation with the Intercontinental Championship. But, Nate, what do you think? What do you think of this whole entire situation? The Miz beating Dolph as a Night of Champions, and then Dolph Ziggler regaining it again on the following night on Raw.
I love the Miz's character. I love Sandow. So many little things he does, like you were talking about. But I didn't like the title switch. If you're gonna make a title change, it should mean something. And I don't like when they do this, when they flip flop it back and forth between these two guys. Because to me it brings the value of the title down. And you've got two really good guys with Dolph and the Miz, and it's like, if the Miz is going to win, then you should give his win some importance, and you not just have him drop the title back the next night.
Mm-hmm. And for me, honestly, I think there should be more of the guys. I think WWE is missing the boat on. Justin Gabriel is probably one of the most impressive wrestlers in the world today. He's really underrated for what he can do in that ring. The IC Championship, we're going to name it that now. It's the IC Championship, because I'm not going to say Intercontinental Championship. That just takes a little bit longer. But the IC Championship, Justin Gabriel needs opportunity of that. Justin Gabriel, Tyson Kidd. I can go down a list of people who deserve that title. Future people who deserve that title. Sami Zayn, one hell of a wrestler. Adrian Neville. I can keep on going down the list. For NXT guys that are eventually going to be called up to the roster eventually.
I actually pose a question, and to answer the question we were just discussing here, I don't care for the flip-flopping of the titles myself. Both are extremely talented guys. I'm just glad that Miz Dow, Damian Sandow, has been given something to do, because this coming out in different get-ups every week was getting really annoying. But to pose a question that I have for the two of you, they talk about the comparisons of Monday Night Raw to NXT, and the fact that, and this is not to say that I know any better, but I don't. But I have a question in the sense that because Raw is actually run by, it's basically the last call is basically given to Vince. Vince has the last say about what goes public and what doesn't. and Triple H has the final say on what goes on NXT and what doesn't. Do you think they could actually? I think we even posed this question. Maybe I didn't. Do you think there's a good chance that there could be competition between, let's just say, Raw, SmackDown, and NXT? And do you see the differences in the way the shows are run? Because I think Vince really believes that he wants to stick to what works instead of one to risk and try something new. Whereas Triple H is constantly building new stars on NXT, and there's constantly new stars, new rivalries, longer reigns as champion. Their differences are night and day. I even read somewhere, and it's just a suggestion that I've read, that maybe instead of making Raw a 3-hour show, why not put NXT for the first hour, and then make Raw 2 hours?
Thoughts? It doesn't sound. I mean, as much as I love NXT, Raw needs to be its own show. NXT is an hour. I mean, Nate and Felix, I'm sure you both watch the show. NXT is an hour of a packed show full of excitement. I mean, the stuff they get into 1 hour of that show is phenomenal. That's why it's such a good show. I mean, the athletes that have on there, like Sami Zayn, Adrian Neville, Tyson Kidd.
I just don't see that Vince will ever give these guys a real shot on the main roster.
I know. That's the thing is the point of NXT is to train them until they think they're prime and just proper in order to get them to step up and go to the main roster of Raw, SmackDown, whatever. But to me,
do you think the four that have been on the roster recently are ready?
Well, no, that was kind of a taste. That was kind of like, NXT takeovers in a few days. We're going to give these guys a taste, to maybe buy the network, which I think is a phenomenal idea. Speaking of, the talent they have, I think it's something that sells the network in itself. I mean, to see these guys who are, just the world travelers like Adrian Neville and Sami Zayn, for example, doing their thing on Raw and SmackDown on Raw was amazing to see. I already have the network, but if I wasn't, I'd be like, I want to see TakeOver. I want to see what these guys can do, even more so than that tag match. But I think NXT is already competition to Raw and SmackDown, without a doubt.
And how about you, Nate? What are your thoughts on the differences between Raw and NXT? Could they cut Raw down to 2 hours and maybe put NXT on first and then Raw? Do you see the differences between the way Triple H runs the show for NXT and the way Vince runs the show for Raw? What are your thoughts on the two different shows?
I think there's absolutely a difference. I think that, NXT to me seems like it's almost more of an alternative to the WWE than, TNA or maybe even ROH. Because you've got the production value of the WWE, but you've got these young guys. You've got guys that are hungry. You've got guys that are different. And to Triple H's credit, he's using them in a good way. Whereas, you look at the main roster on Raw, and there's a lot of guys that are being wasted, like, Big E, Bray Wyatt, they've really cooled off on him. There's a lot of guys that I think they could be doing things with. And, Vince is a businessman, so at the end of the day, it makes business sense to stick with what with guys like Cena, guys like Brock, but I don't think you're going to grow your company with guys like that in the long run.
Okay. Because NXT is a show where basically the pull-in for NXT, the reason why it's so entertaining is because the people who are wrestling on that show, they have to, it's almost like I can't imagine how much pressure they're under to be able to perform at the highest level possible. Because, to be in that position and to have that position with the company, basically saying, these are the guys that are going to come up possibly next onto the main roster, that's a big position to fill. And to always having to entertain and make your minutes, whatever you have in the ring, last and be really impressive, that's a lot of pressure to live up to. But the thing is, in my opinion, they didn't live up to it even then some of what people expect.
Well, the thing that I have is go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say real quick. I think one of the problems that NXT does have is they've got great characters, but a lot of those characters are kind of one-note characters, and when they make the jump, Fandango was hot for like a month or so, and now he's not doing anything. Emma was hot for about a week or so. Adam Rose was hot for about a couple of weeks. You got great characters, great entrances, but there needs to be a little bit more substance, I think, with guys like The Shield, with guys like a Big E, at least when he started, there was more to him than just a character.
Well, I see what you're saying because, I mean, it has to be something, I always say is the best person, I mean, best superstar is going to be the one that is mostly acts like himself. Because, I mean, if you think about it, every single person in the world is an individual. They're unique from another person. And I know there's a personality that each person has. I mean, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, Dean Ambrose, that's basically them. That's, you know, if you see how they act, I mean, I mean, look at Stone Cold Steve Austin. That's the way you see him on TV is the way he acts in real life. That's Stone Cold. The best characters come from within, you know, from whatever you have in your heart is what's going to project to the people who are watching and really connect with them.
Well, my thing is that Raw to me doesn't need to be 3 hours. I really don't think it should be, and that's just my opinion. No. It may not be. It doesn't have to be fact. It doesn't have to be fiction. I feel 3 hours is too much, and the fact that they're showing more replays, they're plugging more things, and what I don't see as much, they do, but not as much as Raw, is they don't plug as much things on NXT, and it's delightfully nice to listen to when they actually call the action as opposed to plugging every ridiculous thing that's on the WWE app, the WWE Network. I'm talking about when they plug things on the app. WWE Network for how long? How much? $9.99. Like people haven't got a clue. I mean, they got it on a flag on their damn building.
You understand? People can't see. That's where the glass is. Some people. They need to say it a couple more times for them to hear. I mean, they might walk out and get some water.
You are Michael Cole of this team if I ever saw one. Oh, my
Lord. I'm
Lord.
just telling you. You know, during the break, they're like, oh, I'm hungry. I want to get some wings out of the refrigerator, get some water. And then Michael Cole saying $9.99 and everything, and then he misses it. They're going to have to reiterate it a couple more times so you can get the message. And quite frankly, I don't think they got the message yet. I mean, they only said it a few times anyway.
All right, Michael Cole. I'm just messing with you, but no. I mean, I'm sure there's logic behind what they do. I just some things I'm scratching my head about because I don't understand if there's really a need for it. Oversaturation of something. Maybe it is too much.
They're doing it for them. The people, see how smart they are. They made this a home charge $9.99 is like a. It's like a phrase.
I'm not talking about the network. I'm talking about 3 hours of Raw. I think 3 hours is too much.
No, I mean, still talking about the network here. We're the promotion machines right now because everybody's like, oh my God, $9.99. That's amazing. Everybody's saying that. I'm gonna say it myself and be basically promoters for WWE promoting their stuff, which is, I mean, I think it's an amazing concept because
you're not even getting paid for it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, otherwise I'm gonna promote what I love. I'm not gonna. Because you never see me. I think you guys can see this. I never, ever, ever post anything negative about wrestling or whatever on Facebook, any social media. I never do it because it makes no sense. Why, waste your time talking about the negative when there's a lot of good stuff that happens in wrestling? I mean, there really is.
And you're right. These are just questions I pose to you guys as discussion. I'm not saying I know what should be done and what shouldn't be done. These are things that leave me scratching my head and wondering if it's too much, if it's too much plugging, if it's too much this. I'm just stating things that I see. I don't. Do I know everything? Absolutely not. Do I know how to do I know how to run a multi-billion-dollar global juggernaut that WWE is? Of course not. I could never imagine what it's like to be Vince, nor would I ever want to be, because that dude don't ever rest. That dude considers rest the enemy.
No.
These are just things that I state as my opinion as a fan. That's all.
You just
and if they like it, cool, and if they don't, they don't.
You just said, Felix Olmedo just said, I don't want to be Vince McMahon. I mean, hey, if I have $1 million, billion, $1 trillion, I definitely want to be Mr. McMahon. It doesn't matter what it takes.
Are you kidding me?
I'm just saying. But, one thing that I'm looking forward to, and I think Nate, being the fan of TNA that he is as well as I am, even in these hard times that we're going through, Low Key is going to wrestle MVP this Thursday night on Impact. And I don't know about you, Nate, or Felix, I'm pretty damn excited for this. Because those two are no strangers to each other. I mean, wrestling in Japan a couple times. I mean, these two are going to have an amazing match.
Oh, yeah, it should be a really great match. Like the TV, it's funny because the TV has been the best part about TNA for the past 3 or 4 months. The shows have been better. The wrestling has been better. Bobby Lashley's been a great champion. I've actually enjoyed TNA most weeks more than Raw, and part of that, going back to what Felix said, is because I can get a nice, compact 2-hour wrestling show with with less filler, I guess, than a Raw show. But the all the stuff backstage is crazy. The article just came out in Grantland about TNA and some of the problems that they've been having, and I just hope they can get their act together because I think the business needs them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, no, I mean, and also they're making their return would be Tajiri, the Japanese buzzsaw.
Definitely, it was awesome.
That's another one I was actually very curious to see back. As he's no longer sporting the beard, he don't even look like the Tajiri we remember. But a lot of good things still have, and then with the change to Wednesdays, the thing is I would love to see these shows get better ratings than what they're getting, or maybe just all throw it out together and stop worrying about the ratings and produce more quality TV.
Yeah.
And it's shown that I don't know, maybe they're not caring about the ratings enough, or maybe they just stopped caring about the ratings.
Well, no,
because the ratings for both shows have been pretty horrible.
Well, not for TNA actually. I mean, I've been following this pretty intensely because I want to see them succeed, and definitely they're in really hard times right now. They're, I'm hoping and praying that they get everything together because there's a lot of people who have jobs with them, and about much of these dreams will be coming crashing down if TNA does as well. But the actual ratings report, at least for the past 2 weeks, last week on Impact was the highest rated show that they've ever had in quite some time.
And I've got to throw something out there. It's got to be addressed because it's some news that happened over the weekend while everybody was watching Night of Champions. Former guest of the show, Daniel Moody, DJ Pringle, he's the son of WWE Hall of Famer Paul Bearer, posted on his Facebook that his brother Michael Moody had passed away. And Daniel has been he's a good friend of myself and to Austin, and we can't even begin to imagine what this kid has gone through over the last 3 years. If you want to go back even further, when his mother passed away, he lost his father last year, and just now, losing his brother a few days ago. I don't want to try to imagine what he's going through, but he knows that we care, and he knows that fans all over the world are sending their well wishes and prayers for the Moody family. And on behalf of myself and Pipebomb Radio team, Daniel is a part of the Pipebomb Radio alumni, Pipebomb Radio family, whatever you want to call it. He's been on the show many times. We are sending our condolences, our heartfelt condolences of that, and letting Daniel know that we are thinking about him and wishing his family the very best. There is something that I want to point out I've shared on my Facebook page. I've also, he's got it on his. If they're actually trying to raise money for the funeral expenses for Michael, and in the last day, in just a day's time, they've already raised $3,175.
Wow.
They're trying to get $10,000 to pay for the funeral, and they've got a picture of Michael with his children and his wife Beth. So it's to help the family because this happened all of a sudden. As far as I know, the only news that I have is that he had passed away in his sleep. No other news has been released at this time. So you know what? I will share it on our Twitter page. I will ask Austin to share it on our Facebook page. Help out. The littlest bits. The little bits goes a long way. If you don't have much to donate, that's fine. $5, $20, $10. They have all kinds of donations on there. It is a GoFundMe account. Check it out. Donate what you can. If anything, if you can't donate, then share it around. Let people know that these guys really need the help.
Mm-hmm. And
any comments, guys?
Yeah, Michael Moody, especially, he actually was the guy to induct his father in the Hall of Fame alongside Daniel. But Michael Moody did his, really some happy times with him. Did his impression of Paul Bearer. I can't even do it like Paul. I'm gonna try. But I remember it was in New Orleans, and they had that really eerie time where the Undertaker came out and paid his respects to his father. But nonetheless, he's up there with his father, and I know he's doing better now.
Yeah, like for me, I wasn't a part of the show when you guys talked to Daniel, but I remember seeing Daniel and Michael at the Hall of Fame, and I thought it was really cool. It's just a rough time for the family, I guess. It's you just starting to get back to normal, I guess, after one tragedy, and then you get hit with another thing. So definitely, if you're a praying person, send your prayers and condolences, and good thoughts out to the Moody family and Daniel in particular.
So, yes, to Daniel, if he's listening or if he listens to the show, you're in our prayers and our thoughts, and please send our prayers and thoughts to Michael's wife, Beth, and their children as well. And with that said, let's talk about next week's guest, because I want to make clear about something that we probably didn't address just yet, but I want to let the listeners know, is that next week we are actually going to be on at an earlier time for the fact that this is a time that Mr. Valiant has requested to be on, and I give him what he asked because he is an honored guest and he is a Hall of Famer, and not only that, he's obviously an author. We'll talk more about his book next week, but he will be on with us. We'll say that the different zone times. He will be on at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is my time in California, and those of us on the West Coast. He will be on at 4 p.m. Central Time for those in the Midwest, in the southern regions, and it will be 5 p.m. Eastern Time. So make sure that you take note and keep an eye out, because we will be on earlier next week for Mr. Valiant as he closes out Legends Month for Pipebomb Radio. Boy, do we got some surprises in store for the month of October, folks.
Oh, my God.
Hold on to your hats.
You guys, I'm not going to expect with who's going to be on. In October is like, Jesus Christ, what the hell are we doing here? It's going to be amazing. But one thing for Jimmy Valiant that I'm looking forward to speaking to him about is Charlie Brown. If you guys know the whole entire situation with him and Charlie Brown, he's cool, daddy, and you never know what to expect from a Charlie Brown with a mask on. But we're going to talk to him more about that next week on Pipebomb Radio when we have the WWE Hall of Famer on, Jimmy Valiant.
He was known as Handsome Jimmy Valiant, the Boogie Woogie Man, and he inspired so many people. He paved the way for so many people. Just his persona, his way he did interviews, and he was double tough. He was one of the tough ones, and I'm proud to say I am reading his book now, and hopefully I'm going to try to read it and get it done as quickly as I can. It's over 500 pages. I don't know if I'll do it, but I'll give it my best shot. But no, I want to read it because I stories like that are people who've been on the road. Like, for instance, Mr. Koloff. These guys have stories to tell. A lot of different road stories that they've been on, and issues that they've faced on the road that a lot of these younger guys now would never even know anything about. Because a lot of these guys, they didn't fly. They drove.
Mm.
Nowadays, the kids fly. Some of them drive, but the majority of them fly. Or they have their buses or what have you. They didn't have all that luxury back then.
Well, and in the case
it'd be
of
an interesting conversation. What's that?
Well, I'm like you were saying, and I was going to basically go further into that. People fly and they go in their cars. In the case of a person like El Torito, you have to be in your, what is it called?
Oh, God, you did not just bring up El Torito.
You're stable. So, you're not mentioning him. I don't know why. Maybe you have something against bulls, but, if you do, don't mention him anymore because I'll just get a little bit angry.
Got nothing against bulls. Got something against guys with high hair, Austin.
Well, you know what?
I'm sorry?
No comment.
I didn't hear what you said.
Me either. I didn't hear what I said either.
Well, maybe it's better that I didn't. Shut up. You never know what you're going to get on Pipebomb Radio Tuesday nights, folks, let me tell you. But this coming week, we do have a busy week on the Pipebomb Radio Network. We have on this Sunday, we have the Pro Wrestling Historical Society. We will be keeping you guys updated as to who the guests might be. We also, as you guys have noticed, we posted just recently the return of the Nacho Mama's radio show. They are going to have WWE superstar, well, former WWE superstar. I guess you can call him a former TNA star at one point. I mean, he was there for a cup of coffee, but he was there. Ezekiel Jackson on the show. They just came off of a
former IC champion.
Yeah, he was. They just came off the heels of a very interesting show they had last week with the controversial, some call him a legend, some call him a flop, some say, I don't know how this man made it in the wrestling business, the very controversial Vince Russo. He was on their show last week, along with Brian Christopher, who debuted his new song. His new entrance song, I should say, excuse me.
It must have been interesting.
But, it was a very interesting show, and I think they're only going to continue to get better. They've had contacts out to a few names. I'm not going to mention anything yet, but stay tuned, folks. It's Macho Mama's radio show.
Exactly. With those two guys on that show, it's insane. I cannot even tell you. I listened to it, I mean, when they were on with us, I mean, it's just, you never, I mean, you think Pipebomb Radio is unpredictable. I mean, you have those two guys on the same exact time, Mo and Oscar, it's crazy. I mean, those two are like, I don't even know. I mean, opinions are definitely going to fly out of these cannons that they're lighting and setting off. I'm telling you, it's really entertaining.
They do have opinions, let me tell you, and they talk about a lot of great topics. I mean, hey, we talk about great topics, but you know what? They have gone through a lot of what they talked about, and that's what makes the topics a little bit more intriguing, because you'd be like, you're used to seeing these larger-than-life characters and never realized that they went through the issues that they went through. So, you know, if you guys get a chance on Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, check them out. They're only available on the Pipebomb Radio Network. Make sure you check out our new and improved website, pipebombradio.net, for all of our shows, our social media links, and all that, and a Subway sandwich, tuna sandwich with tomato on it. Did I just say that?
Exactly. Yes, you did just say that, and I think you can say that because it's something that needs to be explained more in detail. I mean, it's really something truly inspirational. I'm not even kidding. I mean, if people are laughing, and you think it's funny, but
we
this is a whole
because
situation.
We can't believe we talk about this every week.
Well, it's something I need to talk about.
Well, at least I can't.
Well, I mean, you know, I can believe it. I mean, it happens every single day for me. Subway, eat breath, right?
Oh, God, now he's plugging Subway. I swear, this guy is he's a plugger.
Unless we're getting some sandwiches, I'm not going to plug, Austin.
There you go. Speaking of plug, Austin, if you got anything you want to plug, go for it.
Yeah,
and if you don't, Nate, do you have anything to plug?
Well,
whoever wants to go first, it don't matter.
The only thing that Nate's going to plug it in is, you know, the plug it in Febreze or something after he says Buffalo Wild Wings or something. I'm not sure, but I mean.
You are a funny little man.
No, when you're telling me that you're basically kicking the Subway tuna tomato Subway, I mean, what is it called? Subway sandwich on the side. It's crazy. But you know what? I'm stopping here. Nate, continue. Go.
Look, hey, first of all, I have nothing against Subway, but if I'm going to plug, I need Jay to call me up and hook me up with some sandwiches. That's all I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying too. Shoot.
Hey, I'm fat feet. But you can check out my show, The Kings of Sport, with me and Marcus Vanderberg every week. Check us out on iTunes and Stitcher, and on Twitter at KOS_D, Cosspot on Twitter, as well as Facebook.com/The Kings of Sport.
All righty then. We got a busy week a busy week ahead of us, and we've also got the final guest for the Legends Month for Pipebomb Radio. Before we head into the month of October, Halloween, trick or treat. We'll definitely have a lot of tricks and maybe some treats in store. You never know. But for now, on behalf of Austin and Nate and myself, we will go ahead and end the show for tonight, and I will close as always. Keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars. Good night, everybody. Good night, guys.
Bye, guys.
Woo, Mercy Daddy.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.